Okay, good morning, gentlemen. Today's daf, Avoda Zara, daf 56. So we, a few lines down is where we left off. So we said we had a stira is the wine at the bottom of the receptacle become usher. Is it considered wine for purposes of yain nesach when it's just collected at the bottom, or is it when it is the seeds are floating on top? So we had a stira, two views, and we said that according to Rava, it represents different views. One is the view of Rabbi Akiva, who says that the wine is considered to be ready. It's really talking about for purposes of having an obligation of meiser, but he relates it also to the same idea of yain nesach. He doesn't see a distinction, Rava, and he says that that view, the view that says that it is where the seeds are floating, that is the view of Rabbi Akiva, sheyikfe, and the rabbis hold that when it's collected in the pit, that's a storage bin. So it's different times, different opinions when it's officially wine. According to Rava, whether it's for purposes of yain nesach or whether it's for purposes of the obligation of meiser, it makes no difference. So, Iboy Lehu question was asked: Kipui de bor or kipui de chavis? When we say that the seeds are floating, does it mean the seeds are floating in the collection vat on the bottom, or after the wine is taken from the collection vat and put in the barrels, and those seeds are floating on the top of the surface of the water in the barrel, which is obviously at a later time in the process of production of wine? So which one is it that we're talking about? So in fact, we say Toshma, come and listen. The Sanya we learned, Yain mishayikfe, wine when the seeds are floating. Afal pi shekofa, even though the seeds are floating, kolit minagato liona, you're still allowed to drink from, you can go ahead and drink it from the top of the machinery, the press, uminat sinor v'shoise, or from the pipe that connects the upper wine press to the vat, uminat sinor v'shoise, and you can take it from there and drink it. Shmamino, kipui debor kamina shmamino. So apparently from there, it sounds like that Braisa is understanding that the time frame, the ikra time, is the floating of the seeds on top of the surface of the water when the wine is in the storage bin on the bottom. And therefore it's saying that at that point, what's in the bottom is prohibited, but everything above that in the production process, the vat, the tube, the pipe, that's fine if you want to drink that. Even though, presumably a guy touched it, it's not a problem. Okay. But didn't this other rabbi say, Yayin mishayard lebar v'yikfe, that wine, when it falls into the pit and the seeds are floating, that's the time that we have, that's the time when it's prohibited. Rabbi Akiva Omer Mishe Yishole Bechavios, and Rabbi Akiva says when you transfer it into the barrels, into the containers, you siphon it into containers from the vat, collection vat, or wherever in the process, from apparently into the barrels. So you see that it looks like Rabbi Akiva holds that it has to be the time when it's put into the barrels. Maybe it's already floating because it was floating before, but now you put it in the barrel, so now it's floating at the top of the water and sitting inside a barrel. So you see a different view, which is what you were wondering. Is it the seeds floating when it's already in the barrels or beforehand? So you see Rabbi Akiva says when it's floating in the barrels, and the Tanakama of Rabbi Akiva says no, when it's still sitting in the main storage unit. So you see that you have a different view. Tirtzonami loch kamaiso lahachi yayin mishayorad lebor v'yikfe Rabbi Akiva oimer mishayishlich bechavios. So you see that you see that you have these different views. For what we said before, it was one view, but actually Rabbi Akiva disagrees with it, and he will hold you have to wait until it's put into the barrels to be officially prohibited for possibility of yain nesach. So we have three possibilities so far. We have the original of our Mishnah, which is talking about literally it's talking about the context of yain nesach officially, and there it says apparently when it's in the collection of bin, the main collection bin, and then you have these other views that are either in the collection bin but the seed's floating on top, or when it's actually in the barrels. So it looks like if you want to put them all together and assume there's no difference in definition of when the wine is made for purposes of yain nesach or meiser, then you'd say we have three views. And that in fact is the view of Rava, because he doesn't see a difference between why the definition should be different for purpose of yain nesach or for meiser. But we'll see that you could say that there's a difference. So the Gemara says, so masnisin diktani. What about our Mishnah? It says eino oisu yain nesach ad shiar the bar, that when it's collected in the bar, that's the main thing. Just that it doesn't even talk about seeds floating, just that it's all collected in the main collection place. Lema tzulosa tanohi. Could it be that there are three views? In fact, either it's all collected in the pit, or it's all collected in the pit and the seeds are floating, or it's already been placed in the barrels. Lo, so the Gemara says not necessarily. Shani yain nesach de'achmir b'Rabbanan. Could be there when it comes to meiser. There's only two views. Either it's in the main collection vat with the pits floating on top surface, or it's in the barrels. But when it comes to Avoda Zara, the rabbis were more machmir. They say don't wait for the pits to float on the top. As long as it's all in the collection bin, the main collection bin, it's asur. But Rava, who doesn't agree to distinguish that the definition of when wine is made should differentiate based on category, whether our discussion is Avoda Zara, yain nesach, or whether our conversation is meiser, he doesn't hold that there should be a distinction based on that categories, so therefore he will say that there are three views in fact. Okay. Mashibebar asur ve'ashar mutar. So the Mishnah says that which is in the main collection vat is prohibited, but the rest, which did not yet descend into the collection vat, is permitted. Amar Rav Huna lo shanu elo shelo yichzir gargutni legat, aval yichzir gargutni legat asur. So this rabbi says that Rav Huna, that's only if the wicker basket, which is like a filtering system, only if it was left in place, so then you say what's in the vat is prohibited and everything else is permitted. But if you take that wicker basket and lift it, and you return it to the wine press, apparently you lift it and put it on some area on the upper level, so then at that point what you've done is asur, then you've rendered everything prohibited now. Gargutni gufa. The Gemara says, with regard to this wicker basket itself, in what manner is it rendered forbidden? B'mai kamit sara. Why is it forbidden? Why is it causing everything to become forbidden? Apparently it itself is forbidden, and you're transferring the forbidden wine that it has to the rest of the wine press in some level. So why is that an issue? Why is that prohibited in itself? It's just a filtering system. Penitzuk. So apparently it's rendered forbidden because of the stream of liquid flows through it from the basket into the vat below, thereby connecting the wine in the basket to the forbidden wine in the vat. Shma mina nitzuk chibur. So then you're trying to tell me indirectly that a stream of liquid is a form of connection. An uninterrupted stream is, from Rav Huna's statement, you seem to imply that an uninterrupted stream of liquid is considered a connection. And if that's called a connection, then Shma mina nitzuk chibur. And that's something that we've wondered elsewhere about, and maybe from here we could say that answers our question. Kedetani Rav Chia, not necessarily. The Gemara says you could say that this is statement of Rav Huna about lifting the filter back up to make everything asur is based on something else. Like Rav Chia said in a different context, shepechasto tzlochiso hachinami shepechasto boiro. In other words, in a different context, Rav Chia teaches that if one fills a Gentile's flask through a funnel, the wine in the funnel is rendered forbidden in a case where the level of the wine in his flask rose and reached the funnel. They touched. Here too, Rav Huna is referring to a case where the level in the wine in his collection vat rose and reached the wicker basket. So only because it touched, that's why it rendered it a problem. But if it was just a mere flow, that would not render it a connection necessarily. Hahu Yanoko Detano Avoda Zara B'Shishnei. There was a 6-year-old child who was studying Gemara Avoda Zara. Bo Minei, or the Mishnais Avoda Zara. Bo Minei, somebody asked a question of him. Ma'u lidruach imanoch begat. Are you allowed, is a Jew allowed to do wine pressing together with a goy in the vat, in the pressing process? Amar lehu, he answered the child, Dorchin imanoch begat. You're allowed to do it, says the Mishnah. V'hol kol minasach biyodei. But they asked the child, but isn't the goy perhaps at least doing libation with his hands while he's doing the pressing of the wines? So it has to be, it says in the Mishnah, the child said, it must be you have to tie his hands, make sure he's not doing any libation. Maybe with his foot he's moving the water in such a way like to do a libation. Nisuch de regel lo shmei nisuch. Child said doing with the foot is not considered doing a libation. Hahu uvda dehava ben nahardo. There was a story in Nahardo, the dosh yisra v'goy lahu chamra, where a Jew and a goy, they pressed some wine together. Ve shehiyo Shmuel tlasa raglei. And Shmuel waited. Now the dashu, I believe it means that they trod. It says they trod grapes, so they were pressing it with their feet. V'shi Shmuel tlasa raglei, and Shmuel waited 3 holidays without making a decision if it was kosher or not. My Tama, what's the reason for that? Why do you think that Shmuel waited so long? What he's unsure about? Do you think perhaps it was he was thinking the imishkachno tano de osor karabinoson? Maybe I'll find a rabbi who says it's forbidden to drink wine that was pressed with the feet of a goy, just like Rabbi Nosson holds. Isurai afil bano, that then I will prohibit even deriving benefit from it. But the problem is that Rabbi Nosson never said that. The Sanya, we learned, okay, Rabbi Nosson only talks about where it was touched with the hand, not with the feet. Because it says in a Braisa, Modedu, if a Gentile measured a Jew's wine, bein biyad bein beregel, whether with his hand or his foot, yimocher, you're allowed to sell it. It means you can get hana from it. It's not a problem. Rabbi Nosson oimer biyad osur beregel mutar. Rabbi Nosson says if he measures it with his hand, if he's doing measuring of the wine with his hand, then it is forbidden to derive benefit from that wine. But beregel, if he uses his foot to measure the wine, then it is permitted. So you see that to the extent that you want to compare the treading with the foot to the measuring with the foot, he wouldn't, Reb Nosson didn't consider the foot to be a tool to render any type of consideration of Yain Nesach. So Gemara says, Eimer Damar Reb Nosson b'yad b'regel miyamar. You see, Reb Nosson wasn't talking about prohibiting anything with the foot, only with the hand. Hello. What he meant, the Shmuel, when he waited 3 holidays, was because he was thinking, maybe I'll find a rabbi who says that if a Jew and a goy press with their feet the wine, that it's permitted, like Shmuel holds that it was permitted. So if I find somebody else that agrees with Shmuel, then I will also agree, because Shmuel says, like Rabbi Shimon, Shmuel wanted to see about somebody who's matir like Rabbi Shimon. Rashi says the shari mago shel oid kochavim shel aniskavel nesach, because Rabbi Shimon said that if a goy touches the wine, but without the intention to do a libation, that wine is permissible. So Shmuel wanted to see if he finds somebody who agrees with him. Rabbi Shimon ashraya afilu b'shtio. And then Shmuel said, then I'll even allow people to drink the wine that was pressed with the Jew and the goy with their feet. Like our Mishnah says, Nofal lebor ve'ola. Now, like a different Mishnah says, apparently somewhere, says Rashi, if somebody falls into a pit, I guess a goy fell into a pit, and he got up, Rabbi Shimon matir af b'shtiyah, Rabbi Shimon says you can even drink it because it was done without the intention of doing a libation. Have a nice day, guys.